Well, welcome back. We're excited to have you back. And this next segment I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about the LegalShield product and really diving into the product itself, giving you some information about it. And there's really no one better to do that than my younger brother, Mike Riches, who has personally sold several thousand of these memberships. In fact, one thing LegalShield's done over the years is recognize those individuals that have earned over $1 million. And there's well over 100 people now that have earned $1 million, but Mike Riches, the gentleman you're going to hear from next, has actually become the youngest millionaire with LegalShield. So he has earned $1 million faster than anyone else in the business. He has developed one of the most successful organizations in the company, has one of the highest retention rates in the company for membership sales, and he's also currently serving as the president of Harvard Risk Management. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Mike Riches.
Well, thank you. Well, hey, I am so excited to be speaking here with you today and again, covering something that I'm very passionate about, and that is our LegalShield product that we offer. And as Mark made mention of earlier, this was really the pioneer product that we started with at Harvard Risk Management. In fact, this was the only product that we were marketing 10 years ago. When I got involved in the business on a full-time basis, it was the legal plan, and I was excited about that. Now, I was young at the time. I'll just share a little bit about my background with you, but I was young. I was 22 years old when I first, just actually turning 23 when I went full-time marketing these employee benefits and again, specifically the legal plan. And I didn't have a lot of experience, as you can imagine, at 22 years old, 23 years old, but I learned an important lesson early on, and that is that you can make up in excitement what you lack in experience. And if you can get passionate about something, if you can really believe in something, you don't have to have a lot of experience. You don't have to have a lot of education. I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have a lot of things that you look at and you say, that's what's going to make someone successful in business. But I was excited, and I was passionate about the service myself. And I really believe that starting out, because I know that my first few presentations were not very good. In fact, they were bad, but people still saw the excitement. And I really believe that that's why people bought it. I think it was just that they say that sales is really just a transfer of belief. And I think that that's what was happening, is I was transferring that belief. I look back, because it was not the presentations that I was doing. I know that. I remember my first group presentation, and it was a mess. I had driven 3 hours to go present to this small group. There were only 12 people in the group, but to me, at 23 years old, that looked like 1,200 people. I mean, I had memorized my presentation. I had memorized my script. That's what my brother had taught me to do. He said, if you'll take your script and record yourself reading the script and then play it back over and over and over again, you'll memorize it. And I thought that sounded kind of silly, but I believed him. He had been successful marketing these benefits. And so I said, well, shoot, I'll do what he says. And so I did. I recorded it, and I listened to it over and over and over again. And it was kind of like a song on the radio. How many of you have ever heard a good song before on the radio? And the first time that you hear it, you know that you like the song. By the second or third, maybe the fourth time you hear it, you can start to kind of hum along. Maybe on the chorus you can kind of sing along with it. But what happens after you've heard that song 20 different times? You can sing every line. You know the whole thing frontwards and backwards. And that's how I felt with that script. Now, I'm going to tell you, that first presentation in front of those 12 people, I thought I had it all memorized. I thought I had it down. I got up in front of them. I did not remember a thing. and I'm telling you, I've heard some bad presentations. That was the worst that I've ever heard. I mean, I stood up. I think I held the brochure upside down. I was nervous, but I just talked about what I believed in. I talked about what I had seen, and what I had used in the membership and how it had affected me. And so I went kind of through this presentation, and I'm telling you, it was bad. By the end, I wanted to go cancel my own membership. It was so bad. I just thought, man, this does not even sound like what I had said on the tape. But I'll tell you, people signed up, and I didn't want to even close. I mean, I got to the end, and I remember those 12 people. My brother had taught me, when you get done with the enrollment, hold up the application, have them scratch out the $10 fee, and then ask them to fill out the highlighted portions. And I didn't even want to do it. I just wanted to say, folks, I'll come back and get these. I just wanted to get out of there. But I said, I drove 3 hours down here. I might as well close. I might as well ask for the sale. And so I did. I held up the application. I said, scratch out the $10 fee and then fill out the yellow highlighted portions. And I was amazed. People started filling it out. And I wanted to stop them and say, I don't know that you know what you're doing with it. Because after that, I don't think you ought to. But 5 out of those 12 people signed up that day. And I'm telling you, that taught me some lessons early on of the importance of belief and the importance of passion. And I went on that next week to market over 40 memberships. And that was just right before I turned 23 years old. So at 22 years old, my first real week in the business. And I feel that was a blessing, and I was so grateful for that. But I was also grateful that I had the membership myself and used the membership myself, because, I really believe that that's what led to that transfer of belief. And so, and so the last 10 years have just been incredible. We have been very blessed financially, and I'm not ashamed to tell you that. We have been blessed with a lot of freedom and a lot of time freedom to go and travel and do the things that we enjoy doing as a family. I was a newlywed when I first got started. I got married the week before I turned 23, right in that same time. And so we traveled a lot that first year, and it was just my wife and I. And then after a little over a year of marriage, we had our first child, and now we just had our fourth baby. And so it's great that we don't have to travel. And it's kind of interesting. 10 years ago, we wanted to travel. Now with 4 kids, we want to stay home and be there with our kids. And this business has really afforded us the freedom to do both, to do just about as much as you want to do. And that has been such a great blessing. I've learned a lot of lessons in that time. In fact, I'm going to share a quick story with you of when I first got started. Actually, this was just at the beginning of my second year marketing these benefits. And we had a great relationship with LegalShield. We still do today. We're very proud to represent that company, as I'll talk about in a minute. But we had this great relationship. Well, the founder of LegalShield was coming to Shreveport, Louisiana, where I lived. And we were going to be kind of doing a conference. And I had the job of speaking at this conference for about 20 minutes. And I was excited about that. And, so again, I was 24 years old, and the founder was coming in. I had heard a lot about him, and I was excited to meet him. And so I actually got up in front before he got up and did my little presentation. And there were quite a few people. There were about 200 people that came out to this conference. People were coming in from Texas and different areas. And so it was a big room. And you can imagine going from speaking in front of 12 people to now speaking in front of 200 people. And it wasn't just 200 people. It was 200 of the most excited people that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, that was the most excited crowd that I had ever spoken in front of. At everything I said, they started cheering. It's like, "Hi, my name is Mike." Yeah! And as a speaker, you kind of tend to feed off of the energy of the crowd. And so I tended to get a little more excited than I usually was. And it was funny, by the end of that 20 minutes, man, I was bouncing off the walls. I was all excited. I remember I was talking about the income, the commissions that LegalShield was paying at the time. And I remember I said, before I sat down, I was up there all excited, and I said, "Now, folks, this is my second year in the business, and I'm going to earn over $100,000. And people cheered, and I sat down. I thought, why did I say that? I'm not going to earn $100,000. I had made the declaration, and then what made it worse was the founder got up right after that, and he kept repeating it over and over again. There's a lot of stories in LegalShield, but that one right there is a great story. That young man's going to earn $100,000. It's making me nervous. I remember thinking, man, somebody get him off the stage. He's making me nervous. But it was funny. I had said that. I had other people that I worked with there locally that were there. They had heard me say it. And, in fact, that's how people introduced me. From that point on that year, this is the young guy that's going to earn a 6-figure income. And even though I probably didn't believe it in my mind that day, I kept repeating it. I kept repeating it over and over and over again. And I learned an important lesson. If you'll repeat something enough, you really start to believe it. And if you believe it in your mind, that goes to your heart. And when that happens, there's very little that people can do to keep that from becoming a reality in your life. And so it did. For us, that second year in the business at 24 years old, just really marketing a couple of products, I made over a six-figure income paid by LegalShield, and I was so grateful for that. And that was, again, it was kind of cool. I don't say that to brag to you, but it just taught me a lesson that anything is possible if you have the right vehicle. And here's an important if you're willing to drive that vehicle. See, I've seen a lot of people in the last 10 years that have the same vehicle. They're marketing the same products, but yet they don't have some of the success that others have. I've seen other people that have more success than that. We've seen people who earn well over $100,000 their first year. And you say, what's the difference? Well, they have the same vehicle. They were just willing to drive it faster. They were willing to get in and do the work, to do what was required. And part of that to start is learning the product. It's learning what you and I are out there marketing. And so that's this next segment, is to go over the LegalShield product and talk about it, and talk about not just the details and the features of that plan, but why that's such an important plan in this marketplace. Why is it that people need the LegalShield product today more than ever before? So let's get started. We'll get in a little background on LegalShield here. Started again in 1972. They're really the pioneer of legal service plans in North America. They're the first company in North America to offer anything like these plans, these legal plans. And so there have been a couple that have popped up since then. None of them have the establishment that LegalShield has, which is something that we're so proud of and proud to be affiliated with them. They maintain a professional network of law firms, and that network of firms is paid in excess of $100 million per year. My brother Mark spoke about that earlier. Again, when you pay law firms a lot of money, they do a great job. I mean, they really are dedicated to making sure that our members, and that's really what we care about at Harvard, is how are they going to treat our clients? How are they going to treat our customers? When we go into a company and we write them as a group and we bring that business to LegalShield, how are those end users going to be treated? And we also care about the company themselves. The payroll experience needs to be good. But really, if those end users are not happy, how many of you know that if the customer's not happy, nobody's happy, right? And we understood that. That's why it was important to us that they paid a network of law firms over $100 million a year to deliver their service. They're the only legal service plan in North America to utilize what they call a provider law firm system. That's important. What that does is it ensures the highest quality of service is going to be delivered to that client. So instead of just saying, hey, we've got thousands of attorneys and any attorney can become part of that network, what they go out and do is they select one law firm in every state to act as their provider law firm. And that law firm, they're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money to. Like in Texas here, we have the Ross and Matthews Law Firm. Right here in Fort Worth, they have offices in Houston, San Antonio, Austin. Their main office is in Fort Worth. That Ross and Matthews Law Firm is paid $1.5 million per month as their retainer. Now, you just got to put yourself in the shoes of an attorney for a second. If I came to you and said, hey, I want you to deliver some services to me, and it's not just me, right, but it's other people as well, and we're all going to pay, a few dollars a month, but we're going to get our money together, and we're going to give you $1,000 a month. Would you be willing to deliver services for $1,000 a month? You might get an attorney's attention, right? An attorney's attention for $1,000 a month. What if we said we're going to bring to you $10,000 a month, and we want you to deliver service? Now you're going to get a law firm's attention, right? Not just one attorney, but an actual firm. You're going to get their attention for $10,000 a month. If you went to that same firm, though, and said, we're going to give you $100,000 a month, now you've got the whole firm, everybody, legal secretaries, everybody involved, because you've become really their largest client at $100,000 a month. LegalShield pays Ross & Matthews just here in Texas 15 times that, $1.5 million every month. And you wonder why when you call them up, they call back within a few minutes. That's why. And if they doubled it to $3 million, they'd call you back faster. I mean, attorneys and law firms respond to money. And that was wonderful about LegalShield. When we started marketing those benefits, when I started 10 years ago, Harvard Risk Management, myself, my brother, we didn't have $1.5 million a month that we could pay to a firm, but we didn't have to. Here's why LegalShield was already doing. They were already providing that service. All we had to do is get good at marketing it. And we said, okay, we can do that. We can go out and market something that really works well, and especially if it's reasonably priced, which of course this is beyond reasonably priced. It's amazing the value that our members get. Let me talk to you for a second about some of the common myths in the legal system. This is something that mindsets that you'll run into, things that people believe about the legal system. Here's one thing people believe. They believe that the only people that really use attorneys are people who get in trouble, right? How many of you have met people that believe that, right? And for example, you say, have you ever used an attorney? Or even someone that owns our membership but doesn't understand our membership. They'll say, luckily, I haven't had to use that. Well, what they're really saying is, I believe that the only time that I need an attorney is if I get in trouble. That's a myth about the legal system. Here's another one. An honest person, if I'm an honest person, I don't have a lot of legal situations. If I'm a good living person, I don't have a lot of legal situations. And that, folks, is just not true. I mean, that you can look at life that way, but it's an erroneous way to look at our society. People, I'm going to show you here in a second, have legal situations all the time, whether they're good or bad. And they're not catastrophes. They're just things where an attorney could help. Everyone sitting in this room, everyone watching this online training has had legal situations in the last year. You may not have hired an attorney, so in your mind you might not say that's a legal situation because I did not hire a lawyer, but that's not the question. The question is, if you had a lawyer, could it have helped you? If the answer is yes, that's a legal situation. We have those all the time. Here's another one that people say, I can probably figure out the legal system by myself. If I have a legal situation, I've got Google, and I'll tell you, that's a dangerous way to look at the legal system, is to say, I could probably figure it out. There's a reason why attorneys charge a lot of money. There's a reason why there's so many. The legal system in the United States especially is a very complicated system. It's not easy to figure out. Google does not have all those answers, right? That's the reason people go to law school. And they spend years studying that profession. And by the way, they might pass the bar. Does that mean that they're a real experienced attorney? No. It takes years of practice to be able to become an experienced attorney. And that's what I love about LegalShield, that network of law firms. They have requirements on that. If you just graduated from law school, you cannot talk to one of our members on the phone. You have to have so many years in practice in the area of law that you're going to consult on before you can even pick up the phone and talk to one of our members. Now, that's pretty special. I mean, just to think about the level of service, again, that we provide. So those are some common myths. Let's talk about the truth. Let's talk about some facts of the legal system. And here you go. Here are a few. Even law-abiding Americans, this was according to a recent study, even law-abiding Americans will encounter a potential legal situation an average of 4 to 6 times per year. Now, let me tell you, when I'm out talking to people about the legal plan, employees in a group or even individuals, there are definitely people that say no. I mean, I'd love to tell you that everyone that we talk to says yes. That's not true. We actually enroll a pretty high percentage of employees on average, over 50%, which is great for voluntary benefit. But that means there are people that are going to say no. And it's always interesting. I always like to leave them a card when they say no. Here's why. Because they're going to think about me 4 to 6 times per year. 4 to 6 times per year. They're going to be treated unfairly. They're going to have a contract dispute. They're going to have a creditor harassing them. They're going to have something, an issue with their kid's school, a question about family law, estate planning, whatever. 4 to 6 times per year, they're going to think of me. And how many of you get called back, right? I mean, we get called back with customers that didn't take it initially, but later on down the road, they have a bump in the road, and all of a sudden they call you back. We had one gentleman up in Tennessee, Jesse Holman, that had that happen to him. He just went around when he first got started, and he was young, I think just over 20 years old, and he talked to people in his neighborhood about the membership. Now, we don't necessarily recommend that as the preferred approach to go around talking to people in your neighborhood, but that's what Jesse did at just over 20 years old. He went around and talked to just people in his neighborhood. And it was funny, a few days later, he was driving home from work, and he rounded a corner, and a lady had stuck a sign in her yard that said, "Legal Shield Man, stop here." And he saw the sign. He pulled over and walked up and rang the doorbell. The lady said, "Oh, I'm so glad you stopped. I knew you lived in the neighborhood, but I didn't know which house. And I need that plan. Can you still offer me that plan?" And of course, he signed her up. So now, in all fairness, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've never had a sign put out for me to come by. But I'm telling you, people think about you because they have so many situations. The American Bar Association said that over half of all Americans have a legal situation right now. So that's pretty cool. I mean, you think about that. See, do me a favor. For those of you sitting in the room here today, look to the person on your right, okay? Now look back to the person on your left. And I know that that's a more pleasant experience for some of you than for others. But here's what that means. 50%, what that means is one of those two people has a legal situation right now. If you think about it, I mean, that's pretty amazing. And here's the thing. They both just looked at you. So think about that. Folks, people have these situations pop up in our lives all the time. Americans are facing right now some of the most challenging legal situations of their life, some of the biggest legal challenges of their life right now. Think about over recent years what the economy has done and how many people today are going through issues like creditor harassment or foreclosures, even more speeding tickets. You know, over the last few years, cities and counties have stepped up their ticket writing. Why? Because they're broke too. They need revenue. And what's the fastest way for a municipality to raise revenue? Write more tickets. And those are all legal situations. Some of you are smiling saying, I know exactly what that's about, right? So, and you're not alone. But the fact of the matter is people are dealing with major situations right now in their lives. Here's the beautiful thing. We have an answer for that. You and I offer something that they don't even know exists. And you say, well, why don't they just go out and buy the service? They don't know. They don't know that it exists. And even if they did know, most of them wouldn't know where to get it. And that's the beautiful thing is LegalShield begins their advertising campaign, which is going to be a nationwide, I'm talking top-notch advertising campaign. That's going to raise awareness of the product, but it's not going to sign a bunch of people up. That's the beautiful thing. You and I now go out to people who are aware of what we do and are just looking for a way to get that product. I'm excited about that. I know many of you are as well. Let's talk then about why more people don't use attorneys. We've kind of referenced this. The average cost of an attorney nationwide, this is the most recent study done, the average cost of an attorney nationwide is $284 an hour. Now, some of you live here in Dallas-Fort Worth. You can throw that number out. This is a nationwide average. We're talking well over $300, probably closer to $400 or $500 here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I mean, I remember Brian Fahili and I were eating lunch a while back at a pretty nice club downtown Dallas, and it was kind of a buffet-style lunch. The two gentlemen in front of us were both attorneys, and they were talking about this. And it was kind of interesting. The one attorney was looking kind of down and sad, and the other attorney said, well, what's wrong? And he said, well, I don't know. I'm barely making it. We're barely scraping by. My hourly rate's down to $450 an hour now. And Brian and I both looked at each other like, whoa. And then the other attorney said, oh, man, that's terrible. We're up to $535. You know. And I mean, I did feel bad for the guy. I offered to buy his lunch. He's only making $4.50 an hour, you know. And I'm kidding. But the fact is, guys, attorneys are charging a lot of money. That's why people don't use them. We've already established it's not because they don't have legal situations. We all do. But they don't want to spend, or they can't afford $284 an hour. Right? I mean, most middle-class Americans just live in paycheck to paycheck. There's no way they're going to come up with that kind of cash. And by the way, how many of you know it's not just the $284 an hour? It's the $3,000 retainer, the $5,000 retainer that the attorney wants up front that keeps people out of their doors, right? And you and I, again, are changing that. We're giving them access to that system. That's why we say in America, you are innocent until you're proven broke, if you think about that, right? See, some of you say it's innocent until you're proven guilty. That's not true. It's quite frankly what you have in your wallet that determines how you're going to be treated in the legal system. Now, LegalShield, they felt very strongly that's not fair. That's not fair. We share that sentiment. And that's why so many of us are so passionate about this service that we offer, the Legal Plan. I'm going to share with you a video that LegalShield just introduced where they had gone through a rebranding process, something that we're very excited about at Harvard, that kind of talks about the history of that product and how it's come along throughout the years. And I think you'll enjoy this from LegalShield.
In America, every generation is born with a dream, with the notion of equality, with the freedom to make certain choices. to exercise certain rights. The right to life, the right to liberty, the right to pursue happiness. But it wasn't until Harlan Stonecipher was blindsided by a motor vehicle and hospitalized in 1969 that he realized it was money, not rights, that gained you access to our legal system. And after depleting his life savings, defending himself against something he didn't do, Harlan Stonecipher was determined to make legal protection accessible to everyone, everywhere, no matter how traumatic or trivial the situation, so that no one would ever be blindsided again. And that's exactly what he did. It was the early 90s when an idea to create a proprietary network truly changed the game. It meant that instead of hundreds of good attorneys serving hundreds of customers, now there was one dedicated law firm serving thousands of members. And instead of attorneys waiting for work to get paid, they were prepaid. The business model for legal products was turned on its head, and a whole new scope and level of service was born. What had been a good product became a great product. And now, on-call advice went from being the privilege of the few to the right of the many. That's the product we sell today. How good does it feel to be able to offer that kind of service to your friends, your neighbors, your community? Our product is something to be proud of. It has stood the test of time. 40 years and 20 million times, our lawyers have been there to protect their clients, helping our 4 million users live their lives on their own terms. Our members fear nothing. The protection of our product is total. A shield that watches over them and their loved ones, protecting their rights, their freedom, and their future. Everyone, everywhere, deserves to wake up with peace of mind, feeling protected every day, every night, now and forever, by our new company, LegalShield. Total access, total freedom.
I still love watching that video after all these times. It's still a great symbol to me of the need for the services that we're providing. What I want to go do now is talk about the plan itself, to do actually an overview of the family plan that we offer here at LegalShield. This is the most common plan, although there are many, right? There are plans that are just for law enforcement officers. There are specialized plans for teachers, for foster parents. There are business plans we talked about earlier. But this is the most common plan. When you go into a company, you approach a company, it's the family plan that you're going to offer. So let's just kind of cover the different features of that plan. And let me just say this first as we get into this information. Just because we cover this information in detail here today doesn't mean that you and I need to go share every detail of the membership with every prospect. We're going to take a little time going through this. You don't want your presentations to be 25, 30 minutes long. So what you've got to learn to do is share what matters most to that prospect that you're sitting with, whether it be, again, in a group setting or with an individual prospect. You've got to be able to kind of share the big bullet points. But the reason I'm going to cover it with us here today is because it's important to have knowledge. Again, product knowledge, how many of you agree, is a very important thing. You want to know what you're out there marketing, what you're offering. And so if someone has a question, if one of your prospects brings up a question, I want you to be able to answer that question. And so we're going to go into some detail on this. The first area of coverage, we call it preventive legal services. And the first thing under preventive legal services is telephone consultation on an unlimited number of legal issues. So what does that mean? That means that any time that you have any kind of legal question, it doesn't matter what it's about, you have the ability with this plan to pick up the phone and call your provider law firm. How cool is that? Any legal question, divorce, child support, child custody, tax-related questions. How many people doing their taxes every year have a question, a legal question? I mean, that's so common. Questions about real estate. I mean, anytime someone buys a new home or sells a home or invests in a property, There are legal questions that go along with that. How cool is it to be able to pick up the phone and call and talk to an attorney? And I love it for so many reasons. I'll tell you one of those, it's always an attorney that you talk to. LegalShield has that built into their requirements. In fact, we were talking with one of the partners at the Ross and Matthews firm here in Texas, and he said, that's one thing that LegalShield really sticks to. He said, I would prefer to put paralegals on the phone because it wouldn't cost me as much money. But he said LegalShield requires that I have an attorney talk to that member. And again, I already talked about they have to be in practice for so many years. It also is an attorney that specializes in that area that you have a question in. So if I call with a tax question, I'm not going to get their divorce attorney, their family law attorney on the phone. That person would not specialize in the area that I have a question in. And so they're going to put a tax attorney on the phone with me. How cool is that you're always speaking to a specialist? And then I love it also because it's unlimited. I mean, that's the key word to me right there, an unlimited number of issues. You can call them as much as you want. I mean, if I had 5 different questions today, I could literally pick up the phone and call them 5 different times. How cool is that? I mean, so the joke we always tell is even if you're just legally lonely, you just want to call and talk, they'll do that too. I mean, the fact of the matter is it's wonderful to have unlimited access to again, an AV-rated law firm. That's the highest rating that a law firm can receive in your state. Right? I just think that is so wonderful. It's not one centralized. I mean, if I live in Texas, I'm calling a Texas firm. If I live in Texas and have a question about California law, I call my Texas firm. They connect me with a firm in California. I mean, it is such a great system. That alone is worth the price of admission, in my mind, just that ability to call and talk. Also another feature of the plan is that 24-hour emergency access. Now, that's not 24 hours a day you can just call and chat, but that's 24 hours a day. You have access to your law firm in the event that you were being falsely arrested, if the authorities were trying to remove your children from your home, or here's a big one, what about a car accident? If you're injured in a car accident, you think you might want to talk to your attorney? And how many of you agree there are times where it might be 11 o'clock at night, you don't want to wait till 8:30 the next morning. And that's what LegalShield provides is 24-hour emergency access to call and talk to the law firm. I love it. I think that's such a great benefit. We also have the letters and phone calls portion of the plan. And what that means, folks, is if you ever have a situation where you're not being treated unfairly, the law firm is willing to step in and write a letter on your behalf. Now, there are a couple of different conditions there. They have to deem that it's in your best interest, right? So you can't call and say, my spouse has not done the dishes in 2 days. Can you write them a letter? I mean, they have to deem that it's in your best interest. That's for the law firm's protection. They also are going to write 1 letter per issue. So you can't beat, an issue to death. You just have them write letter after letter. So there are some conditions there. But the truth is, 1 letter is going to do it. I mean, if you have a letter come from your law firm, how many of you know that makes a big difference, right, in getting you results? And there are so many situations. You have cell phone contracts where you get overcharged, or a warranty issue on a vehicle, an insurance claim. There are so many issues where you get upset. You know you're not being treated fairly, and you don't necessarily want to file a lawsuit. You just want that company to know that you're serious. And that's what that letter from your law firm really provides. And so I love it. We had a gentleman share just a few weeks ago about an insurance claim. He had filed an insurance claim with his health insurance company. It was a $6,500 claim, so it was a fairly sizable claim, especially for this gentleman. He had filed that. His insurance company denied the claim. So he said, I wrote them a letter, and I sent the letter up to them. They sent me a letter back, still denying the claim. And so what did he do next? He called his law firm, and he had the law firm write a letter. And I loved his story because what he said was, what the law firm wrote wasn't really any different than his letter. It said about the same thing. But what do you think happened after that insurance company got the letter from his law firm? Yeah, you guessed it. 2 days later, gets a call back from the executive department at the insurance company. Sir, we apologize. We don't know what happened. We're so sorry. And sure enough, they paid that $6,500 claim. That's the leverage that having an attorney really gives you. What I like to call it is legal muscle, right? It's muscle that I never had before. I mean, without this plan at 22, 23 years old, you think I could afford to have attorneys writing letters on my behalf? No way. I know there's a lot of people that are 32, 42, 52, 62 years old that don't have that access, that don't have that muscle until now, because we give them that here with this LegalShield product. I think that's so exciting. Here's another one, legal contract and document review. So I love this. Anytime that our members sign a contract or a document up to 10 pages, they can have that reviewed by their provider law firm at no charge. That's covered 100% under their membership. Now, you say, well, why would I want an attorney to review a contract? Well, here's why. They're going to make sure that it's in your best interest. See, I'll tell you, attorneys write those contracts. So a gentleman said a while back, he said, I've never used an attorney before in my life. I said, really? You've never signed a contract? He said, no, I've signed plenty of contracts. I asked him, I said, well, who do you think wrote those contracts? And he said, well, I guess an attorney. I said, oh, I get it. So you've used a lot of attorneys. They just weren't your own attorneys, right? He kind of thought about it. He said, yeah, I guess that's probably not the best plan, right? So think about that, though. Those legal contracts, and of course they have legal jargon. Even if you did take time to read them, most of us would probably not understand them. And that's where having an attorney do that really comes in. That's up to 10 pages covered 100%. Anything over 10 pages would just be covered at the 25% discount. And so it's still, I think, a very fair plan. I love the second part of our plan, the second portion of our plan is the estate planning portion. And this is things like the preparation of your last will and testament. Now, I want you to think about this here for a second, because I love going into a group and I love asking them, okay, with your right hand, raise your right hand if you have a will. And usually it's about 20 or 30% of the room that has a will currently, right? And if you said updated will, it would be less than that, because some of those wills are 10, 15, 20 years old, right? But it's still a pretty small percentage. I say, raise your right hand if you have a will. Okay, now raise your left hand if you are going to die at some point, right? And that's always kind of, it's fun because at least half the room still doesn't raise their hand, so you're kind of looking at an immortal room. But it's interesting because people realize right there the need that they have for this. And how many of you know that every day is a gift, right? We don't know when we're going. I mean, none of us do. None of us know what could be coming around the corner tomorrow. Yet the question is not whether you're going to die or not. We know the answer to that. The question is, when that day comes, are you going to be prepared? I mean, really, are you going to have your affairs in order, or are you not? And unfortunately, most Americans don't. They just don't have that done. And especially if you live in a probate state, like we're here in Texas, where the state controls your assets if you don't have a will. What scared me was my kids. I told you, I've got 4 beautiful children. I could not stand the thought of the state deciding who was going to raise my kids if I died without a will, and that's what would have happened. I mean, that scared me to death. They could pick my in-laws. I'm thinking, I can't let that happen. So you think about the consequences that people sometimes don't like to think about. People don't like to think about death, but unfortunately it is important to think about that. We provide a solution. Another reason why so many people don't have a will, 70 to 80% of Americans don't have a will, is it is expensive. I mean, we're talking $700 to $1,000 on average to get a full comprehensive will. And as you can see there, it's not just the last will and testament. It's the healthcare power of attorney. The living will is included as well. I mean, that's a lot of money, $700 to $1,000. You think about if someone gets their tax return, and they might have a couple $1,000s. Do they really at that point want to take $1,000 to go spend it on a will? It's so easy to find other things to spend that money on, right? So that's another reason. It's just costly. It's expensive. To me, it is worth having this plan just to get that will done, just to get that will done. And then they also, as you can see there, they do annual updates as well. I mean, just an update on a will can be $500 or $600. So just getting the will and keeping it updated on an annual basis pays for that membership. You'll never lose money if that's the only feature that you use. Again, an amazing value and an important feature for our plan. Another important feature of our plan, and another feature that a lot of people use, is what we call the motor vehicle services. Okay, and so this is going to cover things like defense of moving traffic violations. Speeding tickets, for example. If you get a speeding ticket, your provider law firm will provide you a defense, and what they're really good at doing is keeping those tickets off of your record. I mean, that's what they really try to do, is keep them off of your record. Why would you want a ticket not to go on your record? Yeah, your insurance goes up. I mean, I don't care what insurance company you have a pretty good risk of that insurance increasing if you get a moving traffic violation. How many of y'all have teenage drivers? Does that apply to? Okay, a few of you do. How many of you have a spouse who drives like a teenager? Does that apply? Right? Think about that now. How many of you drive like a teenager and just hope you don't get caught? Okay, fair enough. The fact is, folks, I'm telling you, this is an important part of our plan. If you do have teenagers, or if you do get a ticket, and there are people that don't get tickets for 20 years and then they go through a speed trap, they get nailed. This plan is amazing in those instances. The law firm will provide you defense. And I've used that a few times just to kind of try it out, just kind of make sure that it works. And they've done a great job. I've used the membership itself well over 125 times in the 10 years that I've had it. And only 119 of those are tickets. So, no, I'm just kidding. It's not that bad. But I'll tell you, though, I do love it. And it's saved me a ton of money. It's saved me a fortune just having the speeding ticket portion. I would own the plan. I've said this several times, but I would own the plan just for that. And some of you sitting in the room have ridden with me, and you're the one saying, yes, you would, right? So now let's just talk about some exclusions there. They're not going to cover if you're not properly licensed or insured, okay? They're not going to cover if you're drinking or under the influence of drugs. Yeah, it's not a plan that's protecting a bunch of criminals out there. But we understand at Harvard, and I believe the Legal Shield understands this as well, that bad things happen to good people. There are good people that go through a speed trap and get a ticket. It's not a guarantee that the law firm is going to keep that ticket off of your record. And so I do want you to be careful in the way that you present that. It's not a guarantee. I mean, we're not going to sit here and say 100% sure that we're going to keep it off. If you're doing 120 miles an hour in a school zone, they're not going to get that off your record. And there are some jurisdictions that just will not work with an attorney. But what I've said, and I think a safe way to present it is, what our law firm is good at doing is keeping those tickets off of your record. And then, of course, I just share my own experience with the tickets that I've gotten. They've been able to keep them all off my record. And so it is a great plan. And sometimes you get the 99% of the time that it works great. And then for the 1% of the time that really beyond the control of the law firm, it just, it doesn't work. A lot of people want to focus on that 1%. I mean, the exclusion. And I don't agree with that. I think you focus on really the 99% of the time that it's a great plan, that it works exactly the way that you want it to, and move on right from that. So I love that part of the plan. The motor vehicle services is more than just speeding tickets, though. They also include their representation for motor vehicle related criminal charges. Okay, so that's another interesting part of the plan. If you're charged criminally, right, and we're talking in a vehicle now, and some people say, what does that mean? I'm talking like negligent homicide or vehicular manslaughter. Those are examples of criminal charges, but they're motor vehicle related. What am I referring to there? If I'm driving home and I fall asleep at the wheel, which how many times does that happen to good people, right? They fall asleep at the wheel, or they're talking on a cell phone or changing a radio channel, and they cause an accident, and heaven forbid somebody passes away. That person could be charged, even without the person passing away, that person could be charged with a criminal charge, negligent homicide or some kind of criminal charge. LegalShield at that point pays for 100% of your defense if you end up in that situation. And some people say, well, that's not a big deal. I've got good insurance. Okay, that's fine. But I want you to understand there is not an auto insurance company in North America that's going to cover criminal charges, right? They'll cover civil charges if someone sues you, but they're not going to cover criminal charges. That's a huge gaping hole in people's insurance coverage, and yet we fill that hole 100% with this product. I mean, that's a pretty 100%. And those cases can go to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, sometimes much more than that. And LegalShield, again, pays 100% of the legal fees in that defense. Here's another one, driver's license services. 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours with minor personal injury. I say minor up to $2,000 with personal injury or property damage collection assistance. 2.5 hours there as well. The third area of our coverage is what we call lawsuit defense. This is the defense if you are sued. I mean, if you end up in a civil suit or a job-related criminal lawsuit, your provider law firm is going to provide you a certain number of hours every year in defense. Now, notice the key word there is what? Defense, right? It's not going to pay for you 100% to go out and sue people, right? Offensive. And there are perfectly legitimate times where you would need to go on the offensive, right? And file a lawsuit. That would just be covered at a 25% discount. What's covered 100% up to certain hours is defensive litigation. So someone filing a lawsuit against you. Notice the job-related criminal. So it's not going to cover you if you shoot somebody. I mean, it's going to cover you on job-related criminal. What that is like a teacher that's charged with sexual harassment, but it arose from their job duties, or like a bank teller charged with embezzlement. Those are criminal charges, but they're job-related, and so they would be covered under this portion of the plan. If you just went and robbed a bank, that would not be job-related. Unless you rob the bank because you're not making enough money on your job, then I guess that would be job-related. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. That's not job-related. But the fact is those job-related cases that we discussed are covered. There are also the coverage that you have increases every year as well. I want to talk about now the two plans that LegalShield offers. There's the plan that's called the standard plan, and then they also have an expanded plan. And a lot of the times people ask the question, what's the difference between these two? You'll see it on an application. You'll see standard plan and expanded plan. A lot of the times to individuals we offer expanded plans, and to groups we offer standard plans. Although that's not mandatory, you can offer expanded in a group, you can offer standard to an individual. That does not matter. But the difference, the only difference in coverage between the standard and the expanded is the number of hours that you receive under the trial defense. And you can see there, when you have the standard plan, you start out with 60 hours a year. That doubles to 120 your second year. Now I want to speak to that for a second. People think that it like rolls over. That's not true. It doubles. So if you used all 60 hours your first year, you would start out with 120 your second year. It just replenishes every year up to that total amount, okay? And again, it increases the third, fourth year. The fifth year, it maxes out at 300 hours. That's just the standard plan. Which, tell me, is that a pretty good deal? To have 60 hours? Okay, let's just take it times $300 an hour. I mean, someone signing up, $300 times 60 hours, that's $18,000 sitting there in like a legal defense fund if they needed that. I mean, think about that for a teacher or a law enforcement officer, someone who has a pretty high risk because of their profession of getting sued. But do you have to be in one of those professions to get sued in our country? Oh, no. Somebody could be walking up your steps and slip and fall and file a lawsuit against you. I mean, you don't have to have a lot of cause in the United States to file a lawsuit. It is peace of mind, folks, knowing that you've got those hours set aside. Now, you can see under the standard plan, there's not a lot of pretrial hours, okay? And if you went over the pretrial hours that you have, it would be covered at a 25% discount. However, the expanded plan gives you a lot more pretrial hours. Look at the difference there. In year one, it's 2.5 versus 17.5 pretrial hours in the event of a lawsuit. But by year 5, it's 4.5 versus 39.5 pretrial hours. So think about the difference there. That's nearly 10 times as many pretrial hours by year 5 under the expanded plan. That's an additional $9 a month is what it costs to have that expanded plan. So in my mind, I think that's a pretty darn good deal for $9 to have 10 times the hours by that 5th year built up to prepare for a good lawsuit. So I'm excited about that. I think that's a great part of our plan. Let's move into the next area of our coverage under the LegalShield plan, and that's the federal tax audit services. So if someone's audited by the IRS, they have services there that can help them as well. And let's just review what those services are. They get an hour, when they're first notified of that audit, an hour of consultation, advice, assistance, basically trying to dismiss the audit. I mean, that's what that's for. If a settlement is not achieved within 30 days, they would get an additional 2.5 hours of assistance, advice, consultation in working with the IRS. Now, those are not just any attorneys. These are tax attorneys now. I love Texas because we have at Ross and Matthews attorneys that used to work for the IRS, and that's the case in many states around the country where the law firm, or the attorneys used to work for the IRS, so they know a lot about how to work with them, and that advice and consultation at that point is very valuable for our members. And then if that case goes to court, they'll get an additional 46.5 hours. So you total all those up, it's a total of 50 hours that they have there if they're audited by the IRS. And now a couple exclusions on that The IRS audit protection would not cover the audit if it was triggered by a Schedule C. Okay, so someone who is self-employed, for example, or owns a business and has a Schedule C, if it's the Schedule C that triggers that, it would not be covered, right? Now, if something else on the form triggers the audit, and it happens to have a Schedule C, that's still covered. Now, we do have legal plans for the self-employed that we can offer. There are other plans that actually cover those Schedule C triggered audits, but the family plan, the normal family plan, does not. Another, I guess you could call it an exclusion, it's just a point of coverage, is that IRS coverage begins with the tax return that's due April 15th of that first membership year. Now think about that. If you're signing up in January, February, March, it's the tax return that's due coming up in April. But toward the end of the year, we always kind of use that as an incentive, a reason why someone wants to take out the plan now. Because think about if it's December 31st and you sign up, the tax return that you filed way back in April is still covered. But if you wait a day and sign up January 1st of the next year, it's that year's tax return that would be covered. So that's how the coverage on that IRS audit works. And then finally, the last feature or the last segment, the last portion of the legal plan is the 25% discount on all additional services. And what that is members, our customers, can continue to use their LegalShield membership for any situation that would extend beyond the plan coverage. It would just be covered at a 25% discount. That's going to cover things like divorce, bankruptcy, DUIs, DWIs, things of that nature would be covered at a 25% discount. The representation would, right? Now, I always tell folks, if they just have a question about one of those issues, where is that covered? Under the consultation, yeah. So someone can ask questions about those types of issues, but if that case goes to court, if they require representation, which many of them will, then it's going to be at a 25% discount. Now, sometimes we like to downplay that discount. I think that that's one of the best parts of the plan, is a 25%. I mean, look, you don't see attorneys advertising a 25% discount or any discount anywhere. I mean, how many of you have ever driven down the highway and seen an attorney with a billboard that says 25% off? That just does not exist. I met a lady one time. She worked at the law firm's office. She was a secretary there, or maybe even a receptionist. She said, do you know what my employee discount is? 0%. She said, I pay full price and I work for the law firm. I mean, and so the fact that we're offering a 25% discount, just think about a $10,000 divorce, which these days, that's not even a big divorce. I mean, $10,000, that member is going to save $2,500 just by using the plan. And can that go over 25%? Sure, yeah, it can. Do we need to be out there talking about that? No. Because I'll tell you what, if you say 25 to 50%, what number do you think that member is going to hear? Yeah, 50%. So just stick with 25. That's what's guaranteed off of the law firm's normal hourly rate that they would charge. The LegalShield plan, let's talk about coverage for a second, covers the member, their spouse, any children who have never been married up to the age of 21, as long as they're living at home, unless they're a full-time college student. If they're a full-time college student, they'll actually extend that coverage to 23 years old, no matter where they live. They could even be in a different state. They would be covered 100% under that LegalShield plan. Any dependent children for whom the member is a legal guardian up to age 18. So a grandparent, for example, that has legal guardianship of their grandchild, that grandchild will be covered up to 18 years old. And then, as was mentioned earlier, any physically or mentally handicapped children living at home up to any age. And so I think that's a very fair plan. On the legal plan, how much more is it to cover the family, spouse, kids, all that? How much more is that on the legal plan? Nothing. Yeah, covered at the same rate. I mean, they could have very easily said, hey, it's an extra couple bucks a month to cover your spouse and $1 more per child. They could have easily done that. That would not have been out of tune with what insurance companies do every day. But they didn't. They said, no, we're just going to charge the same base rate. You can cover your children. For those of you who have 2 kids, it's a pretty good deal. For those of us that have 4 kids, it's a better deal. People like my brother with 10 kids, that's an amazing steal of a deal, right? That they're covered for that same low rate. Here's the plan pricing for that. The standard plan is offered at only $17 a month, and that's the individual rate. The standard plan covered for $17 a month. And again, the expanded plan, $9 more, is only $26 a month. Now, this is the legal plan pricing only, okay? So this is not including the identity theft or anything else that you might add to it. This is just the legal plan, $17 a month or $26 per month. In a group, they would reduce that rate. So that $17 a month in a group becomes $15.95. So it's $1.05 off. That's the group discount. What is a group? It's when 5 or more employees take out the plan at a company. That's a group. And they would be able to, at that point, you and I can offer that at $15.95. Or the expanded plan would be $24.95. It's $1.05 off. That's the group rate. Okay, that's the group discount that our members receive. Let me ask you a question. Is that a pretty good deal? I mean, really, $17 a month for everything that we just talked about. Is that a good value? I know that's a no-brainer question, but I'm telling you, I don't think that there are values anywhere that exist that are that good. I mean, I'm talking, there's a lot of stuff that you could go out and market. I don't think you'd ever find it. Here's how you can know the value. Go ask an attorney what they would charge for all those services. I mean, if I paid you a flat monthly fee, how much would you charge me? I don't know what their answer is going to be, and it might vary depending on the attorney, but I guarantee it'll be in the thousands. I mean, some of them $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month is what they would charge. Are you kidding me? We're offering that for $17 a month. I mean, that's just, in my mind, that is such an incredible deal. And again, the problem is not people are turning away and saying, no, I don't need that, or it's not a good value. The problem is people just don't know about it. And that's, again, that goes back to you and I, what we're doing here at Harvard Risk Management. You can call it sales. You can call it marketing. What it really is sharing information. And the more you use that membership yourself, the more you begin to believe in it, the more passion you develop for it, and the easier it becomes to sit down with someone or speak in front of a group and tell them about something that you found that you just want to inform them of. And I'll tell you, when it gets to that point, guys, it's pretty magical what can happen. And people, when they see that value, no wonder we sign up a large percentage of the people that we present to. It's such an incredible deal. So that is the overview of our legal plan. Again, I appreciate your time, and we'll move on to the next segment.